Hello buddy, it's Wyvern here with another Total War Warhammer 2 community cast. Now this time around we are going to be on Lightseeker Ford, playing as the forces of the Skaven against the forces of the Empire. And this is a match that was submitted to me by Sean, who's going to be leading the Skaven, a force led by the Deathmaster Snitch here. Now, initially I was a little confused by this game because the Empire build here is what I would consider a bit memey, or perhaps a bit inexperienced. But some of the units in this game end up panning out far better than I would have expected. And as a result, this match becomes quite the slog. And so I felt that it was really actually a nice match to highlight some of those things, and actually taught me some stuff I hadn't realized before. And so that's what we're going to be going through today. So without further ado, diving right into the Skaven composition. It is a, in my opinion, relatively standard defensive comp. We do have Deathmaster Snitch in here. He is definitely a unique inclusion. You don't see him all that often, but he does have good combat stats. He is very susceptible to Lord Sniping with Fireball or Spirit Leech because his HP is very low and physical resistance doesn't help there. But because he does have Concealment Bombs plus Stalk, he is difficult for Empire to detect and snipe out. Unless you allow that to happen. So usually you can get Snitch into melee quite reliably. He's got good combat stats, AP damage, of course. He does have a Slippery, which is going to make him even more mobile, almost as mobile as some Horse Lords. He does have, of course, Deathmaster's Sigil, which can help him snare an enemy lord. And then we do have Whirl of Weeping Blades to help him clear through enemy infantry formations and escape sticky situations. Alongside that, we do have a Plague Priest, who is going to be rocking along on his Plague Furnace with just the summons for Mintide and Pestilent Birth, so going cheap and cheerful there. And that's a good support option to protect these two Warp Lightning Cannons, who are really the centerpiece of this relatively defensive build. Besides that, front line is a mix of Skaven Slaves and Clan Rats, staggered out in two rows, one behind the other. Clan Rats give you a little bit more beef, a little bit more meat. Skaven Slaves allow you to soak up initial charges, that sort of thing. And already we can see the Empire player is unloading his Helstorm rocket batteries into the Warp Lightning Cannons, and this is going to be a bit of a nasty shock, at least it was to me when I saw this replay, because the Helstorms are actually going to be performing rather well. So in the glare of the rockets, the Skaven tech isn't going to be holding up as well as one might hope. Besides that, we do have some Poison Wind Mortars to deal with enemy infantry. Good choice there. Covered by Skaven Slave Spears, as well as the Council Guard Regiment of Renown. And I think that is definitely a solid decision there to get a little bit more elite troops on the field, something that can stop Caff a little better. One slight critique here is not positioning some units to just cover the artillery crew. If your opponent had vanguarded something, which actually in this case they have, I think that's a good choice. But regardless, you can see the poor Warp Lightning Cannon already taking quite a lot of damage and the leadership wavering. Now going over to the Empire, as I mentioned, is a bit of a memey build. We've got Sintler's Reichsguard Vanguard here in the 4, 2 Demigryph Knights, which are very elite and thus very risky against Skaven, but they are here in the woods as well. Backline, 2 Helstorms, which we've already seen doing their terrifying work against the Skaven artillery. Front line of Chevron up Greatswords, which is rather insane. And for the lore choice, we have Karl Franz, who's actually not coming in with either item. And he's on a boarded Warhorse, which I think is something you will never see normally. And there's no mage, which is why I suspect the player here may be a bit inexperienced. But what we are going to be seeing here is that the Helstorm is definitely doing some experienced work. Those experienced crews of Nuln are certainly compensating for any leadership and experience they may have. And Warp Lightning Cannons already wavering, falling apart here under that onslaught. Just having a horrible time. Crew routes there. This crew is probably not going to stick around very long. You can see the route from the nearby crew is actually going to affect their leadership, and they flee. So a massive win for Empire there, for a tiny bit of damage done to Karl Franz from the Warp Lightning Cannons. Both Warp Lightning Cannons have been routed off in the space of seconds by the Helstorm. Now the Helstorms can shift their fire to the Rats. And you can see that Sean, the moment he saw that he's losing that artillery duel, began to push forward. And I think that is definitely a smart decision. Don't stick around in a losing artillery duel. A lesson I think a lot of people don't quite sort of comprehend sometimes, or don't follow through with. A lot of people will stick around in a losing artillery duel hoping something miraculously changes. Don't do that. Pack up and move so that way at least you can close the distance a little bit before your opponent wins that duel. Now, over here, you can see the Poison Wind Mortars are getting into range, and they will be able to start teeing off on the Greatswords, who are going to be very easy to shoot here. Unfortunately, the Helstorm is unloading on its friendly troops, as well as on the Skaven there. And you can see the Wind Mortars here hitting all 3 units at once and poisoning them, and doing quite a bit of damage. That chip damage adds up. In the meantime, Plague Priest pushing forward to get some summons in here to be a little disruptive. Looks like they actually got cancelled, unfortunately. But Sean doing a pretty good job of spacing out his mortar fire to poison as many troops as possible. I do believe, based on what I'm seeing here, is that the mortars were firing on these two sentry units, and he was kind of hoping that the scatter would then hit the outer units of greatswords, which I think is a smart move. You could perhaps go for like this greatsword and that greatsword as well. I don't know, but honestly, I think this is actually just a good decision to try to focus or try to get as much coverage with that poison as possible. In the meantime, Zintler's Reichsguard is sweeping out here, and you can see the Rat Ogres looking to get a flank on the Empire to get in on that backline. A nice attempt there at a Pestilent Breath. Unfortunately, kind of whiffs. It's very difficult to aim from the back of the Plague Furnace. But I think this is a little bit of a misplay here on Sean's part, pushing his infantry to meet the Empire State troops. In my opinion, you should just kite back, let them pursue you a little bit, get an extra volley or two from your mortars without doing friendly fire. Because right now, these mortars are going to be killing their own troops, murdering your own front line with the poison damage, and I think that's something you don't want. I think it would be better to just hold off, wait a second, and push in later. Reichsguard, in the meantime, ignores the Warblighting cannons and is sweeping in towards the mortars, who are pounding away at the greatswords. Not sure I agree with that prioritization. I think I would try to knock out the Warblighting crews first. But regardless, that is what is being done here by the Empire player. Over here, unfortunately, the Plague Priest having a horrible time against Karl Franz, which is unsurprising. Snitch, though, helped clear up these greatswords, and is thus going to be able to shift over here and hopefully stiffen up this failing flank. In the meantime, the Rat Ogres here do get an opening on the artillery crews of the Helstorm rocket battery. So we're going to see a bit of a simultaneous charge here as the Rat Ogres are going to be charging in while being charged down from behind by the Demigryph Knights. Those poor mutated rat monstrosities just not having a good time, even though they are doing their very best here, galloping in against the Empire artillery crews. So this is not going to be a great fight for the Rat Ogres. I'm not sure they're going to be able to take this artillery offline. The Demigryphs will probably slaughter them pretty quickly. Simultaneously here in the back, we do see the Reichsguard simply overrunning the mortar crews and annihilating them. Mortar crews don't get sent flying or anything, so they don't get any damage immunity, and they just get melted very, very quickly. I just have a straight up horrible time on the charge there. And obviously Skaven slaves can't protect them. But fortunately, Sean does get the Council Guard down here, and they are going to start kicking the Zintler's Reichsguard's butt, and they will be dragging them down into the dirt. So definitely good play there, though it would have been better, I think, if the Council Guard was closer, so it could actually hopefully block off the Reichsguard. But we do see the rockets pouring in as well. That's going to do friendly fire. Rockets are nasty even to cavalry, so you don't want that happening. Over here in the meantime, Snitch has defeated Karl Franz, and the Emperor is in full flight, running for dear life, even as his Demigryphs mop up those poor Rat Ogres. And bit of a waste here by the Empire player. I think he is pursuing these Rat Ogres, trying to get rid of them, but he could instead be helping over here, just trying to break this pocket of Skaven infantry, perhaps. The Helstorms, in the meantime, are going to come back online, looking for additional targets. A little bit of slip up here for the Skaven. I think these clan rats are kind of forgotten, and they could definitely be pushing in over on that Helstorm. Simultaneously for Empire, bit of a misplay here with the greatswords pursuing clan rats into the bracken muck of the swamp here, when they could really be up here defending. So I think a bit of a misplay there for both players. Obviously, Micro was starting to become a little more intense for both. They're fighting on multiple fronts, so some of these just got prioritized. Zintler's Reichsguard here does get broken off by the artillery fire. The Warblighting cannons are now back online, so that is very fortunate for Sean. That's going to start shifting that balance of power much more in his favor, whereas previously it was not in his favor. It was looking a bit bleak. That and getting Karl Franz down to basically death's door. And of course, with no healing, Karl isn't coming back. Snitch, in the meantime, is dragging the greatswords as well as the Demigryph Knights down into the dirt. He's doing a decent job here with those Weeping Blades of his. And that tri-bladed infantry definitely holding up rather nicely. Those greatswords are getting a few chops in here and there, but then they are sent flying by the Deathmaster's ninja skills. As in the background, we do see the Plague Furnace crushing some Demigryph Knights, just running them over, staggering them. But this is definitely not a great fight for the Plague Priest. The Plague Priest will suffer here against the AP. Hopefully he can rout these guys, I would think, because he does do AP himself. So you would think he'll rout them. Maybe, especially with Contaminate on the attacks. But it's a bit of a struggle there. For sure, a bit of struggle street. In the meantime, Demigryphs sweeping up high. They still have 24 models, but this is a bit of a misplay. The Demigryphs, in my opinion, should be further back, trying to avoid getting into range of these Warblighting cannons, but they are not. And so they're going to be able to come under fire, I believe. While over here, the clan rats are overrunning the first of the Helstorm batteries, finally able to compromise that artillery. A little late for it. It needed to happen sooner, but unfortunately, the opportunity wasn't present. So it's what it is. Warblade Cannon is going to start piling into the demigriffs, as I mentioned before. That is kind of what you get when you position your cavalry in front of your artillery like this, when your opponent has cannons online. Council Guard, though, now in position to defend. I'm not sure if Sean did or didn't see how weak the Zintler's Reichsguard were, but at this point, I would honestly be probably be pulling the Council Guard forward and just leaving some of the clan rats back here to protect the artillery. Just looking to sweep up this last remnants of the enemy formation. Demigriffs here getting mucked up by the rats and simultaneously drained by the plague beast, so definitely good stuff there. They won't last much longer. They're really the last main unit for the Empire at this point. There's some great swords over there. This last pocket that overextended out here, but with Karl essentially out of commission, there's nothing much the Empire can do, I think, at this stage of the game. At this point, even if it was just Snitch and the Council Guard, I don't think Empire could win, and we're actually going to be seeing, I think this is going to be, I would assume this is going to be a break here, because the demigriffs do rout. The clan rats will take the Helstorm offline, and it's running out of ammo anyway, and that's just going to leave a handful of greatswords, and yeah, that's going to be army losses. So a win for the Skaven. The Ratties take the day. Poor Karl defeated by a filthy assassin. Just breaks my heart. But a fun match, despite what I would say was a suboptimal Empire build. And I really was taken by surprise. And this really, I don't know. Because it's something I've never really tried myself. It's something I've never experimented with. And because whenever I bring Hellstorms, I bring them to counter infantry blobs. I was surprised by how well they did against their artillery at routing them. And now it's something I'm curious about testing more, and maybe I will be doing that in the near future. We'll see. But I was really surprised by how well the Hellstorms did at clearing out the Warblade cannons early on in the game. They routed them off, and Sean was forced to advance with an army that wasn't really designed to advance. This is a much campier and defensive Skaven army. So that took me by surprise. I think that against factions with lower leadership artillery, if you can get this sort of performance somewhat consistently, but against Greenskins, against Bretonia, and against Skaven, Hellstorms might actually be a decent unit when I saw their performance here. Besides that, Snitch did a great job. Kind of helped claw the Skaven's way back into this by killing off Karl Franz. I think that was definitely a big win there. Plus, he did manage to maul some of those demigriffs as well, which is very nice. Broke up some of those early greatsword units in the early engagements, which was definitely good. I will say that my only real critique for the Skaven build here is the fact that you don't really have a way to win artillery duels. I understand that probably you're hoping the Warblade cannons do that for you, but I wouldn't be surprised if a single hammer of witches could beat both of them, which would be half the cost of your Hellstorms, and it would be killing your guns, so you wouldn't even be able to reman them. Empire also does have, and will often bring a lure of fire with fireballs and just snipe out your artillery pieces. So I think you do want to make room for... I think I would bring Natty Boo with sharpshooters, honestly. I would try to put one of them in. Maybe ditch a Warblade cannon. Cut some of these chevrons in the Skaven slaves. I don't know if that would be enough. I would think that might be enough to free up the money for Natty Buos. That would be my main recommendation here, so that you can actually win that artillery duel or have a chance at it. You still do have some support tools. You still got Snitch. You still got your summons. You still got Rat Ogre. So it's not like pushing your Natty Buos forward a little bit to get some pot shots is going to screw you over. But it does give you a much better chance in that artillery duel situation, which in this situation it didn't pan out because of Hellstorms, but in other situations it can fail due to enemy magic missile spam, enemy cannons, that sort of thing. So if you want to play more defensive, I probably would try to win that artillery duel preemptively, essentially, with Natty Buos. That would be my main comp critique here. Besides that, cool to see Snitch, of course. You don't see him very often. Skaven Slaves, Clan Rats, good, solid enough front line. Maybe even a little overinvested because you did bring your summoner there, so you had a lot of rat trash to throw in the way. But all in all, I would definitely say this is a rather solid build. You could maybe cut some corners here or there, try to get an extra missile unit or something. But really, I don't have too much critique on that part. Maybe one other little thing I would consider is maybe cut out some of these Clan Rats and like a Skaven Slave or something. Maybe try to get a third Rat Ogre on the field. But at that point, I'm just kind of nitpicking. Now, for the Empire build here, obviously the lack of caster is a massive misplay, in my opinion. There's no two ways around it. I would suspect the player here, Bruce Lee, is a bit new, but I could be wrong. But not bringing a caster is definitely something that's a mistake, especially when you're doing such an elite build where Lore of Life would be a massive boon. I think it's a mistake. I was taken completely by surprise with how well the Helstorms did. I'm not surprised they mulched some rats, but the fact that they won that artillery duel early on really took me by surprise, or really there was no artillery duel. They just routed off the Warblading cannons in 2 volleys. So that was really cool. Great Swords did rather well. I think there was a bit of micro with the Zintler's Reichsguard. They needed to run off right after they got rid of those Poison Wind Mortars and stay stuck around and fought the Council Guard, which cost their lives. Demigryph Knights, similarly, were getting stuck in fights they really shouldn't have been getting stuck in. You could be cycle charging, trying to break off these rats. That didn't happen. Karl really needs to be more careful and not fight Snitch. If you're not bringing a caster to heal him, then you don't want to be risking such fights. On the flip side, for Sean, good decision to push up the moment you saw you were losing the artillery duel. At least that if your opponent is still wasting a few volleys to shut down your artillery, that gives you time to push forward. It saves you a couple seconds of being under enemy fire. So that is a good decision. I see a lot of players who just sit tight, hoping that somehow the artillery duel's course will change, and then oftentimes it doesn't change, of course, and you lose. So, or at this point now you've wasted all this time waiting for the artillery duel to pan out, and now you're coming under fire, and you've got to cross the entire length of the enemy army. One misplay I will say was when you brought your mortars online. Initially, great splitting of fire with the mortars, getting damage onto key targets. I thought that was very well done. But then pushing your infantry into the fight was, in my opinion, completely unnecessary. You could have stalled that engagement, and that way your mortars wouldn't have done friendly fire. And I think that would have been a good perk for you. But besides that, rather good micro. At the very end game, is really the only other critique I'd have. I think you didn't need to pull back all your troops, but I don't know how much you saw of what was left on the enemy roster. But with the Zintler's Reichsguard completely crippled and the Demigryphs way on the other side of the map, where you could just wail on them with the Warblading cannons if they tried to advance, I think you didn't need to have your Council Guards sitting back at your spawn defending your Warblading cannons. You could have left that to just a few clan rats, had these guys doing cleanup in Isle 9 against all this stuff. But regardless, well played. Thank you for the submission. Big thanks here to Sean. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, had fun. If you yourselves would like to see me cast and critique your own games, if you've got your own strategies you'd like to share, your own units that you don't see me use or you don't see others use and you think are cool and have their niche, whatever it may be, feel free to submit those to wyverngamingreplays@gmail.com. I would love to view them, love to critique them, and I really do appreciate it from you guys. Otherwise, I do thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed, and we'll see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.